Leo wasn't just lonely, he was dusty. His grandmother, Alara, lived in a house that smelled like old paper, dried herbs, and secrets. It was a house that was always whispering, even when no one was speaking. Every corner seemed to hold something ancient and forgotten. Leo, at 10 years old, had lived there since he could remember, mostly filling his days by exploring the one place Grandma Alara strictly forbade: the attic. The attic wasn't just dusty, it was a jungle of forgotten things. Trunks full of scratchy velvet, boxes labeled with names Leo didn't recognize, and furniture draped in white sheets like sleepy ghosts. But the best thing was the old grandfather clock that stood slumped against the far wall. It was huge, dark wood, and hadn't ticked in 100 years. One dreary, gray afternoon, when the rain outside sounded like 1,000 tiny drums, Leo finally climbed the rickety wooden stool to get a better look at the clock's face. He ran his fingers along the carved frame, feeling the deep grooves and smooth patches. Suddenly, his finger pressed a spot near the number 7 that felt strangely soft. A small hidden panel beneath the clock face sprang open, revealing a little pocket lined with faded blue silk. Inside, resting on the silk like a sleeping dragonfly, was a key. This was no ordinary key. It wasn't cold metal or dull bronze. It was a single piece of crystal, about the length of Leo's palm, that glowed with a faint, steady golden light. Leo carefully picked it up. The moment his skin touched the crystal, a shock, not painful, but warm and exciting, ran up his arm. It was like holding a captured piece of summer sunshine. The key felt alive. It felt like it was humming a song only Leo could hear. He held it up to the attic window. The key pulsed once, sending a warm wave washing over the dusty room. For just a second, the light made the old sheets look less like ghosts and more like waiting friends. This key felt like the opposite of loneliness. Leo quickly tucked the glowing crystal key deep into his jeans pocket, careful to keep the warmth against his leg. He knew, with the certainty only a 10-year-old can have, that this key was the start of something that would change everything. He just had to keep it secret from Grandma Alara, whose kind eyes always looked just a little bit worried. The next morning, the key still pulsed faintly in Leo's pocket, warming him even in the cold kitchen. Grandma Alara was baking, a rare event that usually meant she was deeply worried. She was making her famous ginger snaps, and the scent was thick and comforting. "You're awfully quiet this morning, Leo," she said, her hands dusted with flour. Her voice was always soft, like dry leaves crunching. "Just thinking about the history books, Grandma," Leo lied easily, pushing the key deeper into his pocket. She smiled, but her eyes held that usual, distant fear. "History is rarely as simple as a book, dear boy. It's often buried." Leo finished his breakfast quickly and retreated to the sunroom, which housed a massive antique globe and a roll of heavy old parchment that was supposed to be a map of their region. Leo had tried drawing on it before, but the parchment resisted all ink. He pulled the crystal key from his pocket. It suddenly felt very hot, almost buzzing. He instinctively placed the key on the center of the blank parchment. The effect was instantaneous and breathtaking. The key roared with light, a sudden blinding golden flare that made Leo shield his eyes. When he looked again, the light had subsided, but the parchment was no longer blank. Tiny shimmering lines of emerald green and silver blue were tracing themselves across the paper, flowing out from the crystal key like water. A world appeared, a world of impossible spiraling towers, glowing forests, and a massive distant city sparkling like a diamond. It was titled Ethel, the land of pure light, and across the middle of the map, a shadow was creeping. It was a dull, smoky gray, slowly swallowing the bright colors. The map labeled it the Gloom. A single bold, red line traced a route from a tiny spot marked Alara's Cottage, all the way to the Diamond City, which the map called the Whispering Citadel. Suddenly, the kitchen door burst open. Grandma Alara stood there, flour dusting her apron, but her eyes were wide with a terror Leo had never seen. She wasn't worried now. She was panicked. "The key! You found the sun key, didn't you, Leo?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Leo froze, the humming crystal burning his hand. "That key is the only way to unlock the citadel and seal the gloom. It's part of the prophecy of the final dawn, she rushed, stepping closer. But you cannot use it yet. The Shadow Lord will know it's active. He will feel the light. Before Leo could ask who the Shadow Lord was, Grandma Alara grabbed the map, her hands trembling. You must hide, Leo. Promise me you will not start the journey. As she spoke, a cold, dry wind, a wind that smelled of dust and forgetting, suddenly rushed through the sunroom. Even though all the windows were shut tight, it felt like a touch of pure, empty cold. Grandma Alara threw the map into the fire, but it didn't burn. It turned into ash instantly. Too late, she whispered, looking past him. He's felt the whisper. Leo didn't have time to be scared, only confused. He grabbed the glowing key and ran out the back door, just as the cold, dusty wind hit the house with a loud thump. The air was suddenly heavy and still. He raced toward the low wall bordering the silent woods, the dark, dense forest where local kids dared each other to go, but where Leo always felt a prickle of wrongness. He hadn't gone 10 feet when a girl popped up from behind a thick rose bush, startling him so badly he yelped. She was about his age, maybe a little taller, with eyes the color of moss after a spring rain. She wore practical, faded green clothes and looked annoyed. Seriously, Sun Descendant, she said, hands on her hips. We were supposed to wait for the signal, not sprint off like a startled rabbit. Leo stopped, panting. Who are you? And what did you just call me? I'm Maya, and I called you the Sun Descendant because that's what you are, since you're holding the Sun Key, she said, pointing to the crystal glowing faintly in his hand. My job is to protect you. I'm a Guardian Cadet. A Guardian Cadet? I didn't ask for a Guardian, and I don't need protection, Leo muttered, offended. He was already embarrassed he had yelped. Maya rolled her moss-green eyes. Listen, Peter Pan, you just activated the prophecy, and you're 10. You think the Shadow Lord sends greeting cards? Look. She pointed back toward Grandma Alara's house. The cold wind had solidified into a thin, creeping mist, the same smoky gray he had seen on the map. It was moving slowly, not like fog, but like a hungry liquid shadow. That's the gloom, the edge of the Shadow Lord's influence, Maya explained, her voice suddenly serious. It sucks the joy out of everything. If it touches the house, your grandma will lose all her happy memories, maybe even forget who you are. We have to draw it away. A chill went through Leo, not just from the mist, but from the sudden, heavy truth. Grandma Lara's constant worry suddenly made sense. Fine, Leo said, tucking the key back in his pocket. Where is the citadel? North, through the silent woods. The key will guide us, Maya said, pulling a worn wooden compass from her belt. But instead of pointing north, the compass needle was spinning wildly, completely confused. The gloom scrambles everything nearby, Maya sighed. We'll have to rely on the key's warmth. As the cold, dry mist seeped closer to the house, Leo felt his heart pound. He realized this wasn't a game. He had an unwanted companion, an ancient key, and a hungry shadow chasing them away from the only home he knew. The silent woods lived up to their name. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. The only sound was the soft thump-thump of Leo and Maya's sneakers on the leaf-covered ground. The crystal key tucked in Leo's pocket worked like a strange, warm compass. When they walked in the right direction, the direction of Ethel, the key felt pleasantly warm. When they went the wrong way, it cooled rapidly, almost turning icy. It's guiding us along the ancient ley line, Maya explained, her voice low. The energy path the first descendant took. Did the first descendant have a companion who knew everything and wouldn't stop talking? Leo asked grumpily. Maya ignored him. See how the trees here are perfectly straight? That's the edge of the gloom's influence. It likes things to be orderly, silent, and dead inside. As they moved deeper, the light began to fail, not because of the sun, but because the gloom was catching up. The gray mist coiled between the trees, making the air feel heavy and suffocating. They had to cross a narrow, dried-up creek bed. As Leo jumped down, he felt the air drop to below freezing. He pulled the key out. It was pulsing hard, throwing off golden sparks. A shape began to coalesce from the deepest part of the mist. It was thin, spindly, and tall, like a shadow stretched too far. It didn't have eyes or a mouth, but Leo could feel it looking at him with a cold, desperate hunger. The light! The light must be extinguished. A dry, rasping whisper crawled into Leo's mind. It wasn't spoken, it was thought, and it was terrifying. The creature lunged. It wasn't fast, but it was massive, and its shadowy fingers aimed straight for the key. Leo screamed and stumbled backwards. He tripped over a root, and the key flew out of his hand, skittering across the smooth stones of the creek bed. The shadowy creature hissed, a sound like sand blowing over bone, and reached for the key. Just as the spindly finger was about to touch the crystal, Maya moved. She didn't shout a spell, she didn't draw a weapon, she just drew a line in the dust. She kicked a rapid, shallow furrow into the dry creek bed with the heel of her boot, making a short, curving barrier between the gloom creature and the sun key. It was a line that meant stop. The creature froze instantly, its shadowy finger inches from the golden crystal. It began to make a frantic, vibrating noise, a noise of pure, frustrated hatred. "That's a gloom crawler," Maya breathed, keeping her eyes fixed on the line. "It's a low-level servant, nothing more than concentrated apathy, but it can't cross consecrated ground. The line holds." "What line?" Leo whispered, still shaking. The creature was pulsing with a cold, toxic light, trying to push past the shallow furrow of dust. "It's not the dust, it's the intention," Maya said, her voice strained. "The will to resist the gloom. But the line only lasts as long as the guardian can hold the conviction. Grab the key, Leo." Leo forced himself to move. The creature was terrifying, a pure embodiment of everything boring and empty. But the sun key was sparkling, beckoning him. He lunged forward, scrambling on his hands and knees. As he reached for the key, the gloom crawler made a desperate final push. It focused all its cold pressure on the ground, and the dust line began to blur and crumble. Just as the creature's shadow began to stretch over the crystal key, Leo grabbed it. And this time, the key didn't just feel warm, it responded. Leo felt a surge of energy, the same warm, exciting shock he felt in the attic, but magnified 100 times. He wasn't scared anymore. He felt a wave of fierce, protective joy swell in his chest, a feeling he rarely let himself have. He looked straight at the black, blurry mass of the gloom crawler and shouted, "Go away! I'm not lonely anymore!" It was a clumsy 10-year-old thing to yell, but the sun key took the pure emotion, the joy of having a mission, the courage of protecting his friend, and turned it into a weapon. A sudden, sharp blast of golden light erupted from the key, hitting the gloom crawler like a hammer. The creature didn't burn, it shattered. It exploded into 1,000 flakes of smoky gray dust that instantly dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind only the cold, empty smell of old ash. Leo stood panting, the key buzzing in his hand. He looked at Maya, whose eyes were wide with a mix of exhaustion and awe. "You didn't just use it, sun descendant," Maya gasped, rubbing the dust from her hands. "You commanded it. That was powerful. Too powerful. We can't linger. The Shadow Lord knows your courage now, not just your location." They ran until the trees of the silent woods thinned out. The sun key was now comfortably warm, guiding them onto a cobbled path that looked too neat for a forest road. Suddenly they emerged into the light, a bright, almost painfully cheerful light. Before them lay a village called Everbloom. It was perfect, too perfect. Every house was painted a dazzling white with impossibly bright blue shutters. Every garden was bursting with huge, colorful, silent flowers. And everywhere, people were walking around, dressed in clean, bright clothes, performing simple, repetitive tasks, sweeping a patch of cobblestone already spotless, watering a plant that was already saturated. And every single person had the exact same wide, frozen smile plastered on their face. "What is this place?" Leo whispered, clutching the sun key. He felt a weird pressure in his chest, a sense of mounting wrongness that was worse than the gloom crawler. "This is deep gloom influence," Maya said, pulling him behind a large, suspiciously vibrant sunflower. "The Shadow Lord loves this area. It's called the Village of Permanent Smiles." "But there's no mist," Leo argued. "It's bright. It's happy." "No, Leo, it's drained," Maya corrected, her voice low and tight. The gloom doesn't just suck joy, it sucks authenticity. It leaves behind a shell, a perfect empty image of happiness. Look at them. A man walked past, sweeping the same 3 feet of path over and over. His smile reached his ears, but his eyes were flat and blank, like dull glass marbles. He wasn't happy, he was empty. The gloom thrives on apathy and numbness, Maya continued. When it couldn't destroy this village with darkness, the Shadow Lord fooled them. He promised them a world without sadness, a world where they never had to worry or fight or feel anything bad. They accepted, and now they feel nothing at all. They just perform the motions of joy. Leo felt his own smile falter. The atmosphere of Everbloom was suffocating. It made him want to apologize for feeling anything strong, whether it was anger at Maya or fear of the gloom. It was a place designed to make you forget your feelings entirely. If we stay here, we won't get caught by a shadowy monster, Maya warned, pulling him deeper into the sunflower patch. We'll get caught by forgetting what we're fighting for. The gloom in this town will convince you that being empty is easier than being brave. They needed supplies, but they couldn't risk interaction. Every smiling villager felt like a slow, approaching danger. As they crept through the back alleys, a little girl, no older than 7, wearing a perfectly starched pink dress, stopped sweeping and looked directly at Leo. Her smile was the same blank mask. She didn't speak. She just pointed her tiny white broom at the golden sun key sticking out of Leo's pocket. They might not have feelings, but they know their orders, Maya hissed, grabbing Leo's arm. They're empty sentries. Run! They managed to slip past the girl and the relentlessly sweeping man, running until the suffocating cheerfulness of Everbloom was behind them. The sun key pulsed urgently, leading them away from the bright cobblestones and toward a narrow, fog-shrouded path. The path led to a single, sturdy wooden house tucked into a cluster of weeping willow trees. A soft, warm light spilled from the windows, and the air here smelled deliciously of wood smoke and freshly baked bread. A stark, comforting contrast to the cold nothingness of the gloom. A small, stooped man with a kind, wrinkled face opened the door before they could knock. He wore thick wool trousers and a leather apron, and his hands were strong and calloused. Well, well, look what the ley line blew in. The man chuckled, his voice warm and deep, like the house. You two look like you've run right out of a bad dream. Come in, come in. I am Silas, the keeper of the western gate. Silas seemed perfectly normal, wonderfully real. He had laugh lines around his eyes, and his smile didn't look painted on. It looked earned. Maya stepped forward, instantly cautious. Keeper, are you part of the Guardian Network? We are carrying the Sun Key. Silas's eyes immediately fell on the golden crystal, and his face became serious. Ah, the Sun Key. It's been so long. Yes, child, I was placed here to guard the boundary and help those who carried the light. But that was decades ago. I've been waiting for the prophecy of the final dawn for so long, I almost forgot what hope felt like. He led them inside. The house was a cozy chaos of stacked books, tinkered mechanical parts, and warm rugs. Silas insisted they eat and rest. He poured them hot broth and sliced fresh bread. Leo, tired and emotionally exhausted from the village of smiles, finally felt safe. Did the gloom come here? He asked, tearing off a piece of bread. Silas sighed, wiping flour from his apron. Oh, it tries. It whispers lies and promises peace if you just stop caring. It's a slow poison, child, but I found my way to resist. My resistance is routine. I wake up, I chop wood, I bake, I tinker. The gloom can't touch a life that is full of purposeful doing. Maya, however, didn't relax. She studied Silas carefully, watching his movements, listening to his tone. She noticed that Silas was meticulous in his routine. He kept checking the position of a small brass weather vane above the fireplace, even though there was no wind. Later, as Leo was falling asleep on a comfortable cot, the sun key pulsed faintly under his pillow. The golden light was usually calming, but tonight it felt anxious. Leo heard Silas and Maya talking in low voices near the workbench. Keeper, your perimeter defenses seem strong, Maya murmured, but I noticed you check the weather vane every 9 minutes. Why? Silas chuckled. Old habit, girl. Old man's tics. No, Maya insisted. The gloom tries to trick the mind. It makes people perform repetitive, meaningless actions. The villagers smile every second. You check that vein every 9 minutes. A silence fell. Leo, pretending to be asleep, opened his eyes just a crack. Silas was no longer smiling. His face was drawn and weary, and his eyes held a profound sadness. The sadness of a person who had fought too long and was just barely holding on. "It got me, cadet," Silas whispered, his voice broken. "The gloom never leaves. It's a cancer of the spirit. The routine is not my resistance, it's my prison. It tricked me into thinking that checking that vein keeps the gloom away, but it's really just sucking away my freedom, one 9-minute cycle at a time. I am the gatekeeper, but I am also stuck." He looked at Leo's cot. "The gloom knows you're here, Sun Descendant. The very sight of the Sun Key has stirred the Shadow Lord's interest beyond the mist. You can rest tonight, but tomorrow the path will be much harder, and the next century will not be as weak as an old man in his weather vane." Leo's small victory over the gloom crawler in the creek bed now felt terrifyingly small. The gloom wasn't just a shadow you could blast, it was a lie that could trap your heart. Leo and Maya left before dawn, giving Silas a silent wave. The keeper was already back at his workbench, tinkering with a broken clockwork toy, his back to them, trapped in his safe but meaningless routine. The Sun Key led them directly to what looked like a solid rock wall draped in heavy, dark green ivy. "This is the entrance to the Tunnel of Echoes," Maya announced, looking grim. "It's the only safe passage through this mountain range into Ethel proper. We have to be fast. The Shadow Lord hates the mountain, but he uses the tunnel to break the spirit of travelers." "What kind of spirits?" Leo asked, his stomach tightening. "Not spooky ghosts," Maya said, pushing aside the ivy. The entrance was a narrow, perfectly circular opening, leading into absolute darkness. The gloom's favorite weapon is memory. The tunnel is built on a fault line of ancient magic. The darkness here amplifies your greatest regrets and your deepest sadness. It whispers your fears back to you until you freeze and give up. Leo felt a cold wave wash over him. His greatest regret? Not being brave enough to ask Grandma Alara what the secret was before he had to run. "We go through together," Maya commanded. "Hold the Sun Key out in front of you. Its light is pure emotion. Focus on what is true and good, and the key will burn off the lies." They stepped into the tunnel. The air was thick, damp, and immediately claustrophobic. The Sun Key shone weakly, its light barely penetrating the suffocating blackness. It was just enough to show the rough, wet rock walls. Within minutes, the whispers began. First, they were soft, like tiny insects buzzing just at the edge of hearing. Then they sharpened. "You're alone, Leo. She left you just like everyone else. Grandma is gone forever. Why did you run? You could have saved her. You're too small, too weak, too late." Leo clamped his hands over his ears, tears instantly springing to his eyes. He saw a flash of his own image in the darkness. A dusty, lonely boy sitting by the old grandfather clock, waiting for someone to come home. "Don't listen!" Maya shouted, her voice echoing and cracking. She was struggling too. She held her head, her face pale. "You failed your test, Maya. You let the last descendant be found. You are not a guardian, you are a failure." Maya stumbled against the tunnel wall, her breath ragged. "The gloom wants to turn our confidence into shame." The whispers intensified, specifically targeting Leo's core wound: loneliness. The darkness shaped itself into the silhouette of Grandma Lara, turning her back on him. "You were right to be lonely, Leo. No one wants the Sun Descendant. You are a burden. Give up the light and you can rest." Leo sank to his knees, utterly broken. He felt the cold pressure of the gloom settling on his shoulders. He closed his eyes, ready to let go of the warm, heavy crystal key. But as he let go of the fear, he remembered what the key felt like when he first touched it. The opposite of loneliness. He remembered the fierce, protective joy he felt when he commanded the gloom crawler to leave Maya alone. He wasn't alone now. He had Maya. He had Grandma Alara's belief. He had the Sun Key's warmth. Leo gripped the key, not out of fear, but out of a simple, fierce love for his grandmother. "No!" he yelled, the sound tearing through the tunnel's thick air. "She's waiting for me." I'm not alone. I love her. As he shouted the honest emotion, the sun key exploded into a pillar of pure golden fire. It didn't just illuminate the tunnel, it purged it. The whispering shadows shrieked, sounds like glass breaking, and were driven back into the rock walls. The power was so great it nearly knocked Maya over. She stared at Leo, her eyes wide with relief and shock. That was your deepest truth, Leo, she breathed. Love for Ilara. You found the Sun Key's true power source. You can't just fight the gloom with light. You have to fight it with pure, honest feeling. The air was clean now, though still damp. They pressed on, Leo holding the key aloft like a torch, using his simple, pure love as the infinite battery. They spent what felt like hours walking through the tunnel, guided by the key's honest glow. Finally, the air shifted, growing cooler and fresher. They reached a point where the light was visible, a dazzling, impossible sapphire blue. They crawled out of the tunnel mouth onto a grassy cliff ledge. Below them stretched the land of Ethel. It was everything the map had promised, and more. It was a world of pure, saturated color. The grass was deep emerald, the sky was a luminous sapphire, and in the distance the whispering citadel spiraled toward the heavens, gleaming like spun diamond and gold. This was the land of pure light, but the danger was still visible. To the west, the smoky gray gloom was advancing, not as mist, but as a solid, corroded border, swallowing the color and turning the landscape into sterile, black and white dust. We made it, Maya whispered, tears welling in her moss-green eyes. This is Ethel. Before they could even decide which direction to walk, a shadow fell over them, a massive, winged shadow. Leo and Maya ducked, looking up just in time to see a magnificent creature land softly on the ledge before them. It was a griffin, a gigantic bird lion, its feathers the color of storm clouds and its beak shining gold. Perched on its back was a young man with bright blue eyes and hair the color of sun-bleached rope. He wore sturdy leather armor and carried a long, polished bow. Well, thank the light, the man said, sliding off the griffin's back. You must be the sun descendant. I'm Kale, a sky rider from the Citadel Guard. This is my griffin, Zephyr. A sky rider? Leo stammered, completely mesmerized by the griffin, which was now nudging his hand gently with its massive head. The moment you blasted that gloom crawler back at the creek bed, the energy spiked, and we knew the key was active, Kyle explained, his voice cheerful and booming. But you can't walk from here. The Shadow Lord has put up anti-magic nets on the ground. They confuse all but the purest magic. And you, Sun Descendant, are too important to risk. Kyle looked at Maya. Cadet Maya, you did well to guide him through the echoes. The Guardians were worried you wouldn't make it. Maya snapped a quick, respectful salute. I serve the light, sir. Good. Now we fly, Kyle said, patting Zephyr's flank. Zephyr is faster than the shadows and high enough to avoid the worst of the gloom's corruption. We have to reach the Citadel before the Shadow Lord can move his main forces. Leo was thrilled. He didn't even care that Kale called him Sun Descendant or that Maya was suddenly serious and professional. He was about to ride a griffin. Kale helped Leo onto the griffin's back, securing him safely behind the saddle. Maya settled in front of Leo. Hold tight, Leo, Kyle said, mounting up in front of Maya. Zephyr to the Citadel, swift as light. Zephyr gave a mighty cry, spread his colossal wings, and leaped from the cliff face. The world dropped away. The wind roared past Leo's ears, and he looked down upon the magical, color-drenched expanse of Ethel. He could see the spiral towers of the Citadel getting closer, but he could also see far below, the thick gray line of the gloom advancing steadily, like a slow, terrifying, cold tide. The flight was exhilarating, but it didn't last long. As they soared over a huge, lush forest, Kale suddenly pulled back on the reins, and Zephyr began to descend rapidly. Something's wrong, Kale shouted over the wind. The Shadow Lord has activated the Iron Veil, a shield of pure apathy magic. It's draining Zephyr's strength. We have to land below the shield. Zephyr landed roughly among the trees of the largest forest Leo had ever seen. It was beautiful but strange. The trees weren't just ordinary plants. Their trunks pulsed with a soft, silver light, and their leaves were shaped like delicate emerald wings. This was the Whispering Forest, As they caught their breath, they realized why it was named that. The entire forest was speaking. Shh! Welcome. The light is here. Be still. The voices were soft, gentle, and continuous, a chorus of dry leaves and flowing air. This is ancient magic, Maya breathed, looking around in awe. These trees are living conduits of the ley line. They hold the history of Ethel. Cal leaned against Zephyr, whose feathers were still flat and dull. The iron veil is focused on air traffic. We'll have to walk, but we need to know where the Shadow Lord has placed his ground troops. The trees might know. Kyle taught Leo and Maya how to touch the bark gently and open their minds to the forest communication. It wasn't talking in words, but in feelings and visions. When Leo placed his hands on the nearest silver-bark tree, a flood of images rushed into his mind. Joy, laughter, bright sunlight, a figure holding the sun key high above the citadel, and then a sudden cold betrayal, a rush of shadow, and the sound of crying. "I saw the key being used before," Leo whispered, pulling back. It was bright, and then it turned sad. "What happened?" Maya looked at Kyle, her face troubled. Kyle knelt next to Leo. "That sadness is the history of the gloom, Leo," Kyle explained solemnly. "The Shadow Lord was once the Sun Descendant's guardian. His name was Malcor. He grew tired of the endless fight, the endless sacrifice. He believed that peace only came through numbness and control, not through messy, honest emotion. So he betrayed the first descendant, stole part of the key's power, and used it to create the gloom, a world where no one had to feel anything difficult." The whisper from the trees grew louder, more insistent. "The heart is the key. The choice is the key. The lie is the key." As they followed the silent path guided by the whispers, the forest showed them a vision of the Shadow Lord's fortress, a jagged black mountain range that had appeared where a sun-drenched valley once stood. The whispers also showed them a secret hidden pass that bypassed the most heavily guarded routes. "We have to take that pass," Kale insisted. "It's risky, but direct." As they were about to move, the whispers suddenly became frantic, changing from a gentle chorus to a terrified, overlapping shriek. "Danger! Closer! The hunter! The guardian is compromised!" The air in the whispering forest turned icy, instantly silencing the trees. "The hunter!" Kyle hissed, pulling his long bow from his shoulder. "The Shadow Lord's most powerful assassin. We need to split up. Maya, you take Leo and run for the secret pass the trees showed you. Zephyr and I will draw his attention." "No!" Maya shouted, looking terrified. "You don't understand, Kyle. The hunter—" Before she could finish, a loud crack like lightning split the air. A dart of pure, solidified gloom shot out from the shadow of a massive, ancient oak tree and hit Kale directly in the shoulder. Kale cried out, stumbling backward. The dart didn't pierce his armor, but the part of his skin it touched instantly turned chalky white and went numb. "It's paralyzing magic!" Kyle gasped, sinking to his knees. "Go! Run, Leo! Use the key!" But the hunter was stepping out of the shadows. It wasn't spindly like the Gloomcrawler. It was a person, tall, cloaked in black leather, with a featureless, silver mask that reflected the small light of the sun key like a dull mirror. The hunter radiated a chilling, focused malice. The hunter didn't move toward Kale. He moved directly toward Maya. "You were ordered to contain the Sun Descendant, Guardian Cadet." The hunter's voice was a low, synthesized rasp, devoid of all feeling. "You failed your directive by allowing him to use the key's power. The gloom demands a price." Maya froze, her eyes wide with a terrible realization. She turned to Leo, her hands shaking, her mouth open, but no words came out. Leo felt the sun key in his pocket turn instantly cold. His protective joy evaporated, replaced by the sickening cold of betrayal. You knew about this," Leo whispered, looking from the masked hunter to the terrified Guardian Cadet. "What did he mean? Ordered to contain me?" Maya squeezed her eyes shut, a single tear running down her cheek, a tear that looked painfully real, not like the empty smiles of Everbloom. "I didn't want to hurt you, Leo," she choked out. "The Guardians, the whole network, including your grandmother, they knew the prophecy meant the key would attract the Shadow Lord. My first mission was to find you and keep you hidden and safe until you were 18, when your power would be manageable. We were going to disable the key's light to hide you. But I activated it too soon, Leo finished, his voice small and hurt. Yes, when you did, Malcor, the Shadow Lord knew your exact location and sent the hunter to retrieve the key and you. My new directive was to keep you away from the Citadel until a distraction could be prepared. Kyle was sent to lead the hunter on a chase to give us time to escape. Kyle, struggling to move his paralyzed arm, shouted, "She's lying, Leo. The only betrayal is Malcor's. She is a guardian." But the hunter simply pointed a finger at Maya and let out a single, terrible word. Ineffective. A thin, dark chain of gloom magic shot out from the hunter's glove and wrapped tightly around Maya's ankle, yanking her hard against the tree trunk. "I am sorry, Leo," Maya cried, clutching her ankle. "I made a promise to your grandma. I failed." Leo looked at Kale, whose face was pale with pain. He looked at Maya, who was chained by shadow. And he looked at the hunter, the embodiment of cold, efficient malice. He realized the hunter didn't want him dead. He wanted the key and its power. Leo pulled the sun key from his pocket. It was pulsing wildly, alternating between the cold of confusion and the warmth of his deep fear. He stepped forward, holding the key up to the hunter. "I am the sun descendant," Leo said, his voice shaking, but his stance firm. He thought of all the lies, the silent town, Silas's routine, the initial concealment from Grandma Lara. "You want the key? You have to come through the truth. My truth is, I don't want to lose the people I love." He aimed the key, focusing the raw, messy, honest emotion of his fear and his love. The key flared, not with a bright, focused blast like before, but with a wide, overwhelming wave of pure, golden feeling. The wave hit the hunter, who staggered back, roaring a sound of synthesized pain. The gloom chain on Maya's ankle snapped. "Get out of here," Kyle yelled, grabbing Leo and shoving him toward the secret path the whispers had shown them. "Go! I'll cover you! Maya, follow him!" As Leo ran, pushing through the dense growth, he saw Kale weakly pull back his bow, aiming a standard arrow at the heavily armored hunter, a final, brave, doomed act of loyalty. Leo didn't look back. Maya, now free from the chain, stumbled after him, her breaths coming in panicked sobs. They scrambled through a narrow cleft in the rocks that the whispering forest had revealed. The path was steep and treacherous, forcing them to use their hands and knees to climb. Maya was crying softly. "I didn't mean to betray you, Leo. Your grandma just wanted to protect your childhood. She didn't want this burden on a 10-year-old. But the gloom thrives on lies," Leo said, forcing himself to breathe deeply. He clutched the sun key, which felt steady and warm again. Silas got trapped because of a small lie. The silent town was built on a lie. "You had to tell me the truth, Maya, even if it was scary." Maya looked up at him, her eyes shining with fresh tears and a new respect. "You're right. You're wiser than I gave you credit for, sun descendant." "My name is just Leo," he corrected determinedly. He felt a maturity settling over him, the feeling of making his own choice, his own destiny. They climbed for another hour. The air grew colder but cleaner, drier. They were ascending above the iron veil. Finally, they reached the summit of the pass. They stopped, exhausted, and looked out. The sight was the most desolate, yet magnificent thing Leo had ever seen. Before them, maybe only a mile away, was the base of the Whispering Citadel. It wasn't on a tall mountain, but on a vast, flat plain of silver rock. It was colossal, a structure of white marble and diamond spires that seemed to touch the underside of the sapphire sky. It was the color of pure, unblemished hope, but the entire plain leading up to it was a wasteland. The Shadow Lord's power had seeped into the rock itself. It was gray, jagged, and lifeless, and scattered across this desolate field were the Shadow Lord's army. Countless gloom crawlers, taller and darker than the one Leo had fought, standing like an unmoving, silent forest of evil, guarding the base of the citadel. They were waiting. They knew Leo was coming. "The citadel," Maya whispered, pointing to the base. "The main entrance is sealed by 100 locks, but there's a side door, a small utility entrance built for the guardians. It only takes one key, the sun key." Leo pulled out the golden crystal. It was now glowing with a steady, brilliant, constant light. It was no longer humming anxiously. It was roaring silently. He looked at the desolate field, then at the impossible number of enemies. He looked at the magnificent citadel, the source of all the light, just waiting to be unlocked. "We have to cross that plain," Leo said, his voice clear and steady. The fear was still there, but it was wrapped in a new layer of steel-hard determination. "Is there another way, Maya? Another hidden pass?" Maya shook her head, her moss-green eyes serious. "The whispers showed us the path, Leo, and Kale bought us the time. We must cross the field of gloom on foot. It's the final boundary before the citadel. But the moment you step out, every shadow in that field will move against you." Leo looked at the key, thinking of his lonely attic, his worried grandmother, the trapped keeper, and the brave sacrifice of Kale. He knew what he had to do. He wasn't the sun descendant because he found a key. He was the sun descendant because the key found him, and because he chose courage over comfort and truth over the lie of numbness. He gripped the key tightly, letting the protective joy and the honest love for his grandmother fill him up. "Let's go, Maya," Leo said, taking the first step down the pass toward the barren plain. "It's time for the final dawn."